Greetings, fans of exquisite and sometimes noisy music. This is Peter Sco for Music is a Journey. Today's little side bit is going to be a review of the latest Styx album, Crash of the Crown, which was just released back in June. Not that long ago, really. And a funny thing is that I actually knew this album was coming out. I heard that the writing had already begun some 2 years ago. I heard that they were going in the studio last year. And then I didn't hear anything until I checked the Sea of Tranquility YouTube channel where Pete Pardo was reviewing this a few weeks back. So I went straight up and ordered it right away. Okay, sorry. The cat interrupted me 3 times already in the last 2 minutes. Before we get on to my opinion of this new album here, let me just give you a bit of my background experience with Styx. I've already done 2 videos about them, by the way back in 2019 when I first really got into the band. I talked about them briefly, and then I made another video where I think I talked about I don't remember if it was their top 10 songs of all time or something like that, but I have actually talked about Styx twice before. Now, of course, I knew about the band ever since I was first getting into music. The year was 1983. I'd already discovered I was interested in AC/DC, Van Halen, Black Sabbath, and a few others as well, and music video channels were popping up, not channels, but music video programs. I remember there was Friday Night Videos out of New York. There was also Good Rockin' Tonight out of Vancouver, and I often stayed up watching those, just hoping to catch my favorite videos by some of my favorite bands. The heavy metal bands were usually put on near the end, by the way. Anyway, it was of course during those times. I heard the video, I watched the video for Mr. Roboto. Kind of an interesting video back in the day anyway, but of course it was more of a techno-pop type song. It wasn't my thing. But of course, since then, Styx always stayed in my head. I do remember hearing about Dennis DeYoung with his Desert Moon albums. And of course, later on they came out with that Show Me the Way song, so Styx was always kind of there in the background somewhere, but I never really paid attention to them. Even when I first bought their album, The Grand Illusion, back in 2017, 2018, around then, I thought they were good, but I still wasn't really hooked on them until, for some reason in 2019, I don't know, picked up a couple of more albums and thought, hey, these guys are really good, and went out and got their entire studio discography. Anyway, so that is a bit of my background. As I said, I've already talked about them in some videos. I'll just let you know now, after Dennis DeYoung was basically dropped out of the band, I do actually like what they did. Their Cyclorama album, yeah, it has some songs which are questionable for being on a Styx album, particularly the Kiss Your Ass Goodbye song, which sounds more like Blink-182. But overall, I think it's a pretty solid album. There are a lot of really good songs. I actually like Lawrence Gowan. I like his vocal style, his songwriting. I like his piano playing, keyboard playing. I think he was a good addition if they're not going to have Dennis DeYoung. No hard feelings against Dennis DeYoung, by the way. I think he's great. I really enjoy listening to him in interviews. I enjoy a lot of the songs and a lot of the things he did for the band. Not a big fan of the soft, saccharine-rich ballads, but anyway, love a lot of Dennis songs. I think very highly of Dennis. All right, but I do understand chemistry between band members just wasn't really working out very well, and as much as he would really love to be in with the band at least one more time, probably not going to happen. Lawrence Gowan, I knew him from the 80s as well. Wasn't into his 80s style music, but I do think he's good as a contributing songwriter and musician in the band and vocalist as well. Okay, so Cyclorama I liked. I did not get The Big Bang Theory because I didn't really care to have a covers album. However, I did pick up The Mission from 2017. Yeah, we have 2003 and then 2017, 14-year gap between original studio albums. Phew, but anyway, I really loved The Mission. I thought, why the heck did you guys wait so long to put out another studio album? Because The Mission was absolutely brilliant. However, there was an interesting change of direction in the songwriting, and that was that The Mission was basically a concept album about humankind's first mission to Mars. And a lot of the tracks were really short. There were some little transitional bits. I don't think there were any tracks over 4 minutes long even, whereas in the older Styx catalog, you can typically find songs running 4 or 5 minutes long, sometimes even a bit longer. Way back in the early days, they even went over 7 or 8 minutes on occasion. But The Mission was just like a series of short but really good songs. There were some great melodies, there was some very nice music. You could call it a progressive rock album basically because of what went into it, even though it was a collection of very short songs. However, we are now moving ahead 4 years and finally the release of Styx's 17th studio album. Yeah, the first one was 1972. You know, like basically up until their 11th album, Kilroy Was Here, they were popping out albums fairly regularly. But after that, it was like Edge of the Century in, was it 1990, I think? And then Brave New World in 1999, Cyclorama 2003, Mission 2017, and now Crash of the Crown in 2021. Here it is. So, similar to what happened with The Mission, this album is also a collection of mostly short tracks. In fact, the longest track on here, Common Ground, is exactly 4 minutes long. The rest of the tracks are basically under 4 minutes, but over 3, with some being under 3 and a couple of very short tracks, including one instrumental, which is about 28 seconds long. So very similar to The Mission in that way. Also, we have basically the same lineup. You have Tommy Shaw, guitars, vocals. You have James J.Y. Young, also doing lead vocals, but probably the least amount of lead vocal time that he has on any Styx album, because basically he's credited as lead vocal on one song, and he doesn't even keep the lead vocal for all of the song. The title track, by the way, Crash of the Crown. But anyway, of course, he is one of the members going back to when Styx first began recording. He was the last member to join the original lineup before they hit the recording studio. Aside from that, we have Chuck Panazzo, one of the original founding members, going way back to, was it 1963, when Chuck and his twin brother John were playing in their room. John on drums, Chuck on guitar, and a boy 1 year older named Dennis stuck his head in through the window and said, "Hey, you guys want to form a band with me?" Dennis played accordion at the time. That was the Trade Winds that were born, and then a few years later, when they switched over from being basically a kind of high school dance band and switched over to being more of a rock band, they added John Serlewski on guitar. Chuck moved over to bass. And that was basically the beginning. They changed the name to TW4, which was actually There Were Four, rather than Trade Winds 4. And then later on, JY joined the band, and they changed the name to Styx, and then they went in and recorded their first album. Yeah, I know all that because I read this book, The Grand Illusion, The Unauthorized True Story of Styx by Sterling Whitaker. As well, I also read The Grand Illusion, Love Lies, My Life with Styx by Chuck Panazzo. Okay, so yeah, I like the band that much that I read that much into their history. But anyway, so yeah, now Chuck, in the last couple of albums, he appears basically only on a couple of tracks. And I think basically as a founding member, they want to make sure that he stays on each Styx album. I understand that he doesn't always play live, and when he does, sometimes it's only for a couple of songs. The other more full-time bassist is Ricky Phillips, who also has a rather extensive professional career in music, going back to, I think, the Babies, is it? With John Waite? Something like that, back in the late 70s. But anyway, so he's been the regular bassist for Styx for the last, I don't know, like 15 years or so. Ricky Phillips. And then Todd Zuckerman, he has been the drummer for Styx ever since John Panazzo, the original drummer, died back in around 1995 of alcohol poisoning. Todd came in as the fill-in for him during the Return to Paradise tour, and then when they went in to record the new album, Brave New World, they just asked Todd to stick around and become the permanent the permanent drummer and a member of the band. So he's been with the band since the latter half of the 90s. He's been the drummer on the last few studio albums as well. Okay, so he's there. Have I missed anyone yet? Oh, of course, Lawrence Gowan, who is also lead vocals and keyboards. So, as usual with Styx, we have 3 lead vocalists. We have Tommy Shaw, Lawrence Gowan, and James J.Y. Young on there. And of course, we have these wonderful vocal harmonies that Styx is known for. They still show up on here. In fact, 2 of my most favorite songs on here are, I have to look at it at the back now, Our Wonderful Lives. And you know what? That song is actually stuck in my head right now, and I could not pull out the title of that song. Anyway, Our Wonderful Lives, and also To Those, I love the vocal choruses in these songs. It is just so typical, not only of Styx, but of that kind of late 70s big arena rock sound. In fact, I posted a link to this song on my Facebook page, and one of my friends made the comment, "The foreigner traveled through Kansas on his way to Boston to meet the Queen. What a journey." And I think that pretty much sums it up. All that kind of late 70s pump rock and big choruses, lots of fantastic music are in those tracks. Now, the rest of the album, yeah, I actually enjoy listening to the whole album. We have, as I said, some very short tracks. We also have some not particularly long, but a little bit longer. There are many different moods on the albums. You will get these more moody, brooding type songs. You will have the more sentimental type songs, and of course the more powerhouse type songs. There are no saccharine-rich ballads on here. Tommy Shaw's lighter work is a little bit more, I would say, introspective and reflective, and there's a positive message in there somewhere too. So that is good. I really don't care for the adult contemporary soft rock ballads, and they are not to be found on the last couple of Styx albums anyway. Yeah, I think the one thing that I can say now, I've listened to this album about 5 times in the last 3 or 4 days since I got it, and the one thing that I find is other older Styx albums, they are more like having a full course meal. You have this really delicious soup. You have this great salad with the dressing. You've got whatever other courses are in a full course meal besides the main course and dessert and all that. But I mean, each dish that is served, you savor it, you enjoy it, you relish it, you love it, and then you move on to the next one. And of course, some dishes just taste more flavorful than others. Some are more delicious than others. Maybe you might get something that is not really to your palate, but overall, it's a full course meal at the end of it. Whereas this, along with the Mission, to me is more like a buffet where you go and take little bits of many different things, and each of them have their own flavor. Some of them very delicious, some of them quite good, and some of them, well, yeah, that's all right. I like that. I might have some more. And that's what I feel like listening to this album. It's not like, for example, from The Grand Illusion or Pieces of Eight, where you might say, like, this track is awesome and that track is awesome and I gotta hear this one again. It's more like, I really like this track and I really like that track, but you know, all the tracks in between and the tracks before and after, actually they all have something really good about them. It might be the piano melody, it might be Lawrence Gowan's vocal, it might be one of the guitar solos, it might be the chorus melody, whatever. Just going through the whole album, it's almost as if this could have been just one long track or 2 long tracks, side A, side B, that are broken into different parts. For example, Rush's 2112, which is all of side 1, yet it is actually individual songs that make a part of a story that are stitched together. Now this, I think, is not a story, although it does have a kind of conceptual feel to it. As I read one reviewer saying, this is basically a message, a positive message to America. However, even though it was actually written back in 2019, a lot of the lyrics we can actually relate to with all that went on last year in 2020 with COVID-19. So you can look at a lot of these lyrics and think about that, and perhaps the meaning becomes doubly poignant, if you will. Not being an American myself, I can't completely feel the same kind of connection perhaps that other Americans might feel to the lyrics, but nevertheless, I do relate to the whole COVID-19 thing and what the world was going through at the time. So that's cool. And once again, just the music, the vocals, the melodies, I really enjoy this album. Is this an album I'm going to keep coming back to? Well, I can tell you 2 years after acquiring all of the Styx catalog, I still go back and listen to songs even from Brave New World and Cyclorama. Not so much Kilroy Was Here, Edge of the Century, but other albums I do. The Mission, I have several songs that I kept on a playlist for the longest time until I now put the whole album back on my iPhone again. And this album, I think, is also going to rank up there. One last word to say. I, not that long ago, joined a Facebook group for a particular anime which I was into. I have since left the group for my own reasons. But anyway, a lot of people would post videos, kind of mash up scenery or scenes from the anime, stills, whatever, illustrations, and they put some music behind it. And I think nearly everybody in that group must have been under the age of 20. Some of them probably not even 12 yet. Boy, did I feel out of place. And the music they chose for those videos was, of course, contemporary pop music. And listening to it and then listening to this, I started to really understand how my parents felt when I was a teenager and they listened to what I was listening to and thought, you want to know what real music is? Listen to this. This is Louis Armstrong. This guy is a real musician. This is real music. And I'd be like, yeah, he's good, but yeah, I'm going to take Judas Priest. So listening to this, I think, wow, this is what real music sounds like. This is great. And how about all that pop music stuff they put for those anime mashups? All right, kids, you can keep it. Anyway, that is it. Before I yammer on for too long, Styx, Crash of the Crown, released, I think, just back in June. Oh, and I forgot to say one very important thing. A very important contributing person to this album is Will Evankovich, who not only played many of the instruments and produced the album, he was also involved in the writing of 13 of 15 of the tracks on here. Will Evankovich was also the producer and I think occasionally writer or musician on the previous album, The Mission, and he's also worked with the Guess Who. He also worked with Shaw Blades, which was Tommy Shaw and Jack Blades, their kind of duo together, as well Tommy Shaw's 2011 solo album. So Will Evankovich, a big member, a big person responsible for what you hear on this album, and apparently it was announced that he is now the official 7th member of the band. Okay. There it is then. Styx, Crash of the Crown. If you're a fan of the band and you don't mind that Dennis Young is not on here, or if you just want to hear some really good late 70s rock put into a modern sound, here it is. Give it a listen. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with a regular episode when I get there. See you then. Bye.